Good morning. Welcome to the live stream. Today is Wednesday, March 11th, day 5 of a 6-day sprint. We're doing it this week and we're doing it next week. So hopefully you guys will come back and hang out for that because we're having a blast. I see here this is a blanket. I made this blanket. Hello. This is a granny square blanket that I made last year. I love it. Isn't it cute? It's so cute. I didn't mean to leave it there, but I'm going to leave it there. I was using it yesterday because I was cold because it's snowing again. It's March and it snowed for the second time this month, so it's cold. Anyways, how's it going? That is an unhinged intro. My name is Angela. I'm a front-end developer and a software engineer in St. Paul, Minnesota. On this channel, we do HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We are working on a new project called Colorado, and I'm enjoying it very much. It's going to be 9 pages. Today we're going to do QA. We just finished working on what is referred to commonly as kitchen sink HTML, where I just asked ChatGPT, like, hey, give me some kitchen sink HTML, meaning give me a variety of HTML that I can style. So when I release this template out into the ether, which technically it already is, it's on my GitHub, it will have a comprehensive set of styles. So anybody who wants to use any of my work, if you want to build a WordPress website, if you want to build a static website, if you want to just use the design in any way, shape, or form, personal, commercial, doesn't matter, you are welcome to use it. That's what I basically do these for, as open source. Well, I mean, it's practice, and the YouTube channel is meant to be, educational, but also I want to give these templates back to the people, to the folks, because I'm a self-taught developer, and that was only possible through the generous open source work that exists on the internet, right? So anyways, kitchen sink HTML is meant to be sort of a comprehensive set of styles. And I think things turned out great. I'm like so happy with it. It took us a couple of days to work on this, but it was totally worth it. I love it. We do need to do a thorough QA though. And I think it's a good idea that you stop 2 or 3 times throughout your process to really sit and do a top to bottom, left to right QA. And that's exactly how I approach things. I look at things on desktop, I click buttons, I check hover states, I check spacing, alignment, things like that. And we just tighten things up, tidy things up. Do this a couple of times throughout your build so you don't get slammed at the end by everything. Also, cut yourself a little bit of slack. As the builders, you're not going to catch everything. It's just not possible. When you are focused on layout and semantic HTML and accessibility and SEO best practices and keeping your CSS clean, listen, you're not going to catch everything. So cut yourself some slack, be as thorough as you possibly can, try to notice things where you can, but I promise you there will be a period after you're done and you do a handoff where the clients will QA or actual content and images will go into your site and lots of issues will pop up. That is totally normal. So there's that. Let's say hello to a few people. Go Elmo is here. Malik Robinson, welcome. He is our mod in the chat. Kiri is here. Hello. Do you remember me? Should I? I apologize. With the usernames and not screen names, I don't always remember people. So I apologize. I don't specifically remember you. But if you would like to refresh my memory, I would be open to that. Hello. Good evening. Welcome. We're so happy to have you. For anybody who sent me a DM over on Instagram, those DMs had been going into a little bit of a black hole. So I apologize for that. I got caught up on them last night and responded to a bunch of people. And the DMs that I'm getting are interesting because it's giving me a little window into the things that new developers are struggling with. It's interesting because also, all the hype around AI. AI is taking over. AI is going to eliminate the need for a developer. AI is going to do all the work. Listen, you can't use a tool if you don't know how to do the work, right? And there are going to be new developers entering the field. We don't live forever. Human beings don't live forever. Technology will carry on long after we're gone from this earth, right? New people will continue to enter this field and will continue to do the work. And yes, AI is a tool that is going to change how that work is getting done, but you can't use the tool if you don't know how to do the work. That means that new people entering the field need to learn how to do the work. And the messages that I'm getting, the questions that I'm getting are an interesting window into what is on people's minds, the things that they are struggling with. I can tell you right now, they're not struggling with semantic HTML and accessibility. They're trying to figure out, what kind of developer do they even want to be? Should they be learning the most popular frameworks? Should they be learning the most popular programming languages? And I know people have strong feelings on that, and my answer is not going to change. Pick something that you enjoy, because you will spend thousands of hours of your life learning to do it. But what I'm seeing in my messages are people who are absolutely paralyzed by where to even start, because we have these massive roadmaps. So let's say you want to do front end, and there's this huge roadmap of everything you need to learn. I look at some of those roadmaps, and after 13 years as a front end developer, I don't know how to do like 2/3 of what's on the roadmap. And I have still managed to have a very successful career as a front end developer. I know how to do a lot of stuff. I don't know how to do everything on the roadmap. So these roadmaps that we're giving new developers, they are pointless. They're overwhelming people, and they're causing people who would otherwise probably be just fine. They are paralyzing them because they don't know how to start, where to learn concepts. And the problem with that is that it's a process. It takes years. You have to be patient, and you have to be diligent, and you have to be willing to show up and put in the reps. And the whole point of my channel for front-end developers is not to come on YouTube and say, you only need to know HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. You only need to know vanilla and you can get a job. Of course, that's not true. That's not what I'm here saying. I'm trying to give you easy wins and an easy path to see if you even like front-end development, because in front-end, you build for the browser. And what are the 3 things that the browser does natively? HTML, vanilla JavaScript, vanilla CSS. You don't need Node. You don't need a package manager. You don't need a compiler. You can literally just open up VS Code, and you can do an index.html, a style.css, and a script.js. And you don't need to compile. You don't need Node. You don't need a package manager. You don't need anything. The browser just reads these files. I want to encourage people who might be interested in front-end development to just start simply. See if you even like HTML. See if you even like CSS. Do you even like vanilla JavaScript? Does that seem interesting to you? And by the way, look at the easy win that you're going to get in the browser. Easy win. Easy wins. I want to get you excited. I want to see you write some CSS and then go look at the browser and get excited because you did the thing that you tried to do. And I don't want you to sit at home and lose sleep over, Tailwind versus Bootstrap or Angular versus React. I just don't want you to lose sleep over that. I want to see if you even enjoy doing the work first, if you even enjoy building for the browser. So yeah, I don't know. I actually think what I'll do is maybe Maybe I'll read some of the questions that I've been getting, keeping the author of those questions anonymous, of course. But I think I would like to read some of the questions that I'm getting. I had a really good question about freelancing too, which is just such a window into how new developers are being bombarded with information to the point where they're not even sure. They know they want to freelance, but they don't know if they should do back end or front end for freelancing. That's an amazing question to me, and it is no shade to the person asking the question. I think that's actually an indication of how new developers are just having so much information thrown at them, they don't even know what decisions to make in order to move forward. So let's see if we can like simplify it and break it down. So stay tuned for that for tomorrow. I didn't have time to prep any of those questions, but I'm going to do that today, and we're going to talk about some of these things tomorrow because I want to remove some of these layers. I want to encourage people to just slow down, take a breath. Just take a breath. And let's see if we can break it down and help you clear your mind for some decision making and see what is the best path for you, if that makes sense. And if you have any questions for me, you want to come find me on Instagram. My handle is Angela J. Holden. I get a lot of DMs, so just give me a couple of days to respond. If I don't respond right away, I will respond. And let's see if we can break some of this down and answer some questions, because I don't just want to help you with the mechanics of front end. I want to see if I can help slow you down a little bit and get you pointed in the right direction and get you excited for this type of work and remove some of the overwhelm, because that's not going to help. That's not going to help you at all. So I think this might also be a good time to remind people to like and subscribe. Like the video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new here. I would love to have you. Generally, I stream 4 days a week. So Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. I'm generally here for a couple of hours. We just build projects. We just build vanilla projects. It's super chill. We're in a 6-day sprint now. We're going to do a 6-day sprint next week as well. And then in April, we're going to do a 30-day sprint. I'm going to stream every day for 30 days, the entire month of April. I'm calling it 30 Days of Vanilla JavaScript. And we're going to do a JavaScript challenge prompt every single day and build a UI and deploy it, because I am now the proud owner of 30daysofvanillajavascript.com. We're going to actually build that website and a template before the challenge starts on April 1st. So hopefully you can hang out with us for that as well. And also, I would just appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. Helps the algorithm, helps push this out to more people who might be into this type of thing. So there's that. And as always, if you would like to have your messages read out loud to the class, go ahead and put them in the chat. I love reading comments. I love answering questions. And if you're a little snarky, I don't mind that either. Don't make it personal though, okay? There's no reason to make it personal. Some people do, but not very many. We've run into that a couple of times. But if you're a little snarky, you have a strong opinion about AI, you think I'm wasting my time, bring it. Bring it. I love responding to that. I love responding to the snark. Do it. Do it. And I have a little knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So what can I do next? Oh, my friend, think of a project and build it. We promote project-based learning here. There's 3 ways to learn something. We have a course, we have a tutorial, we have a project. A course introduces you to a new programming language. So let's take CSS. A CSS course introduces you to CSS. A tutorial answers a specific question. Let's say that you're trying to figure out absolute positioning. You go to YouTube and you type it up. What is absolute positioning, or how to do absolute positioning in CSS? You find a tutorial that answers a specific question about absolute positioning. A project is where the real learning happens. A project is where you actually put that information that you got from the course to work in a real situation. So my best advice, if you're just starting out and you want to build something, you want to put those skills to work, build a landing page, build a header, build a footer, and build a main section, build a body with content, style it, make sure it's accessible, make sure it's responsive, and you can look at that on a mobile device. That's it, my friend. Start small. Easy wins in the browser. Build a landing page. You need projects. So if you have an idea for something, build it. If you see a landing page mock-up that you like, go to Pinterest. See something you like, build it. That's what you do. Project-based learning is what I'm always going to tell people to do here. So, okay. We need to do a little bit of QA today. And I do have like a QA sheet. So let's recap where we're at. This is going to be a 9-page website. So we're done with the home page. We're done with our page template. We're going to work on the 404 page today, and we're just going to do like a general QA. And then we're going to do our about page and our contact page, and it will be a working contact form. I like to use FormSpray. So I don't think these will take very long, although famous last words, I always say that, and it takes like a week, but I don't think it will this time. Then we're going to do a blog page, like an archive page, so like a collection of blog elements, and then you would click into an actual blog article. So we need a template for that, which I think we can use. We're going to borrow the page template for the contact form. This is what we're going to borrow for our blog page, because the blog page itself has this sidebar right here with like this main section on the left. I feel like once we build the contact page, this is essentially what this is, minus the hero, right? So we would have a content section on the left, and then we would have a sidebar on the right. So doing the contact page template, we will be able to easily reuse this. Same with this. So we'll probably take this and reuse it for this first, and then we'll go ahead and build that inner page. Then we have a portfolio grid. This won't take long to build at all. I don't think we're going to, I'll put in pagination as part of the UI, but it functionally isn't going to have pagination because I'm not pulling data from an API. It's all static content, but functionally I will include this markup. So if somebody came along and actually used this for their project, they could definitely do that. And then the only thing I really don't have is a template for portfolio projects. But this is a big pack of Photoshop, layered Photoshop mockups that I bought from ThemeForest about 10 years ago. I pulled 4 out of this, and there are maybe 50 layered PSDs in this pack. So we can go back and look and see if they have a template for portfolio projects. So we could do something like somewhat unique. So there's that. Okay, but let's do a 404 page first. I'll be honest with you, I'm not super excited about doing QA. It's really, really important. It's also really, really boring, and I don't particularly enjoy it. So there's that. So I'm going to procrastinate a little bit by building a 404 page. So, and 404 pages are weird. They can be very weird. So we have here our 404 directory, and let's go ahead. This is our index.html page for the page template. So it's basically the template for the page, basic page structure layout. We're going to save this as a 404 page, and we'll do a few things here. So I'm going to save as index.html, and we're going to put this in the 404. There we go. And let's just close some of these. so I don't get distracted. That's the home page. Okay. So first of all, here's our page title. So I'm going to say 404 error. And then the name of our site is Colorado. Yeah, and we're going to have to work on our meta Open Graph stuff as well. I might do that off, I don't know. I might do that offline because it's so boring. But I probably should do it during the stream too. Otherwise, what's the point of doing it if I don't actually show you that I'm doing it? Hold, please. Okay. So I updated the title. The other thing that we need to keep in mind is that all the links, so the links to the other pages, the links to images, everything is relative, right? It has to be relative because the URL in our local environment is different from our URL in our staging environment, and that's different from our URL on our production environment. Right now there are two environments, local and GitHub Pages, but eventually we're going to deploy this to a production site which will have a domain name of coloradowebproject.com. And so that means the site has 3 URLs depending on where you're working or where you're viewing things from. That means that images and navigation are all relative, and that can get extremely weird inside of navigation. So let's see here. Well, let's just go ahead and see how this behaves as is. So I'm just going to save this. So we're on our home page. I'll make this a little bigger. I can't make the address bar bigger, so hopefully you can see that up there. So the whole point of a 404 page is that if somebody gets something wrong, like a URL is wrong, they don't just see a browser 404 error, they actually see a styled page from your website. So I'm just going to type in some gibberish. Oh, and it says cannot get. Hang on. What do I have? Do I have to do something? Do I have to do something? That should go to our 404 page. So if we go to 404, directory 404, so here now we see our 404 page. If we go to blog / and then we kind of do gibberish. Yeah, cannot get. Hang on. Is there something that we need to do differently? I can't remember. Let's ask ChatGPT. See what I said? 404 pages are weird. I'm building a static website. I have a directory 404. When I put in a random string in the URL, I get this page. So let's take a screenshot. What do we need to do? what's happening? So your server is trying to find a real file or folder at that path. Since this is a static site and that path does not exist, the dev server responds with its own plain text error. What you usually need instead is 404.html. Many local servers do not automatically show your custom 404.html. For static hosting, hosts like GitHub Pages, Netlify, and others usually look for a root level 404. A directory called 404 that only works if someone visits /404 and there is an index.html inside it. So instead of this, you usually want this. Really? The main fix this goes against everything I know about 404 pages. It probably does because there are two different ideas getting mixed together. A 404 status and a 404 page are not the same thing. On a traditional server like Apache, you can say when a request fails, return status 404 and render some custom file or route as the body. That feels like the server sends my 404 page. Okay, that's a good point because I learned how to build 404 pages in content management systems, WordPress, and then the CMS that we used when I worked at St. Thomas. And I don't know if I've ever built a 404 page on a static website before. I built a 404 page on my website, which is technically a static website, but I used PHP for templating, so all the pages are .php. But on a plain static setup, especially with a lightweight local dev server, there is usually no custom error page configuration layer. The server just says file not found. Here's my default response. Okay, so your instinct is not wrong. You're just expecting server behavior that this dev server does not provide. So interesting. Here's the practical distinction. What you know from normal web hosting, a server can be configured so that missing URLs render a custom page. Example, Apache with error document 404, 404.html. Nginx with error page 404, 404.html. Static hosts like GitHub Pages or Netlify with their own conventions. What your local server is doing. Something like live server or another minimal static server is just serving files from a disk. If this URL does not map to a real file or folder, it returns its own bare error response. It does not automatically think, oh, let me go load 404. Okay. Okay, so let's, we don't need to keep reading this whole thing. I learned something new today. Okay, well, that's why we do these things. So let's take this and rename it, and we'll see if this works. So we'll just call it 404, and then let's pull it out. I'm going to delete this. Okay, so now we just have like generic 404.html. Yeah, it's still... Should we stop this and try it again? I'll tell you, I think this is worth solving, especially if you have any interest in doing freelancing right? You would want to make sure that there's a 404 solution if you're building static websites. I don't think this is going to do anything, but yeah. Okay, we're going to figure this out. Why 404.html matters. Many static hosts have a built-in convention. If a request is missing, serve 404.html. That is a hosting convention, not a universal browser rule and not a universal file system rule. So your mental model is still valid. The missing piece is. So this just may not work locally. Maybe we just have to push this up to GitHub and make sure that we see this working on an actual server. That's good to know. Okay, so I changed it to 404.html and it's still not working locally, but maybe, but maybe the real test is on GitHub Pages and later on my LAMP stack. Yes. That is the real test. Locally, a basic static dev server often will not simulate custom 404 handling correctly, even when your 404.html is perfectly fine. What matters is GitHub Pages. Put 404.html at the root of the published site, not inside a folder, then test by visiting a nonsense URL in the deployed site. And for your LAMP stack later, you would typically handle it with a server config, not just the file existing. So in our Apache file, we would say error document 404.html. That is so good to know. Because we deploy every single thing that we build on this channel, that's something that we started doing a few months ago. We can add this to our documentation for our server setup. Yes. Honestly, we should be doing this anytime we deploy anything, even if it's a one-page website. We should include error handling. That is the correct, thorough way to do this. So that tells Apache to serve your custom page when a route is missing. One important note, if your 404 page uses, okay, don't give it to me. Okay, that's the part that I know how to do. That's the part I know how to do, so I'm not going to continue to read. Maybe a little bit. Right. The part I already understand is using base. But don't tell me now because I'm streaming and it will be a surprise. Got it. I won't spoil the moment. Enjoy the reveal on stream. Those little aha moments make great live content. Anyways, good luck with the build. Listen, be nice to ChatGPT. When the machines take over, you want somebody on your side. You want somebody that remembers that you were nice to them. So there's that. Terry Murray is here. Welcome, Terry. Terry is our friend in Toronto, Canada. How's it going? Glad that you could come hang out with us today. So, okay. So let's go ahead and, okay, so we know now that we need to build 404 error pages, but they are not going to work locally. The real test is on GitHub Pages. ChatGPT is basically saying, hey, GitHub on their server configuration is already accounting for that error handling and is going to look for 404.html. So it shouldn't be a directory. I'll go back here. So it shouldn't be a directory with an index.html. It should just be a 404.html that lives in the root of our site. Beautiful. I'm down for that. So we'll test this on GitHub Pages, and then we have to remember, oh, excuse me, we have to remember that when we do our deployment that we are putting in error handling in our Apache file. So we just have to remember to do that, and we'll add it to our QA list. So let's go ahead and deploy this and test it, because I do want to test it and make sure that we are seeing what we need to see. This is going to take a little bit of time. This might take most of today, which I'm here for it, because I do think this is important. Yet another thing that I should have been doing all along. Git add, git commit, building a 404 page, git push. Okay, so we're going to do a preliminary test. Trust me, we're going to do this several times where we make changes and deploy, because for me to show you the thing that I really want to show you, we have to see this actually working on GitHub Pages. So we can go back here and just get back to our site. Well, we can actually just look at our 404.html. There it is. So while that's deploying, let's actually, well, we know up here in our title, it says 404 error, Colorado. So that's good. Even though this page is technically a 200, that's okay. Rayhan is here. Hello. Welcome, Rayhan. Thanks for coming to hang out. So here's Colorado. Let's just do a couple things to this page. Where's our title? Here's our navigation. Well, we want to make sure that nothing is active, right? So we're going to take that off. And page. These would actually not, we don't want those, right? So I think it would actually just be that, because we're in the directory. We'll have to test that, obviously. We're already, this page lives in the root, so we don't need to traverse anything. Let's see if this works. Okay, so first of all, we should just do 404.html. There, okay, so it's, whoops, it did exact, so it's what the page works, but what isn't it doing? It isn't loading the styles.css and the JavaScript. It's perfect. This is a perfect part of my plan. So let's look here and see what the path is. Oh, it's probably because, yeah, I got the wrong path in there. So it's looking, let's do this, in the wrong place. Yeah, it can't find, it's looking in, it's going up one to the root. So let's just go ahead and push this again. Probably should have waited. Okay, fixing the relative URL paths. Okay. We'll give that a moment. In the meantime, I want to introduce you to something called the base element, MDN base. The document base URL element. This is what we're going to need to do only on the 404 page. So the base element specifies the base URL to use for all relative URLs in the document. There can only be one base element in a document. And the reason that we have to do that is because a 404 error could be many levels deep. So for our site on GitHub Pages, we have a root domain, which is angelajholden.github.io/Colorado. On our production website, the root will be coloradowebproject.com, right? So already we're in two different areas. On our staging site, we are in a directory. On our production site, we will be in the root of the directory. So right there, you can see that we have to account for different things when it comes to the relative path. I can't put the relative path in for images because based on where I am, I want the path to be the images in the current directory, not an absolute path that lives somewhere else on a server. So the images or the URLs for style sheets, JavaScript, and images are always going to be a relative path. And the deeper that you get in your URL, the relative path is no longer relative to the URL. So you set a base URL to tell that page specifically, this is the path in order to find those images. So it gets a little tricky. We're going to have to do we're going to have to do some stuff, but it's going to be fun. I promise you, you're going to love it. It's going to be super fun. Okay, so now let's see if this is working. Okay, now it's working. Almost. Well, here, I think we can just... There we go. So now everything is working. And so if we look at the style.css, you can see here the request URL, which is relative, is looking for style.css in the current directory because that's what we specified right here. Style.css in the current directory. But what if the 404 page is, or the wrong URL is many levels deep? So let's say somebody goes to blog and then article, a URL that doesn't exist. That's the point, right? Article, wrong. And then we just type in some gibberish, right? So now we're still getting our 404 page. We're still getting, you can see the title up here on the page, 404 error, but we're not loading any of our assets because the relative path is wrong. So let's look at what didn't load here. We'll clear this and do it again. So here's style.css. It's using the relative URL of whatever got entered into the address bar. That's what it's using as the relative URL, and it's looking for style.css in the completely wrong path. So if we put in a base URL in the head and we say, hey, this is the root URL, always look for the relative assets using this URL and not taking into account what's actually happening in the address bar. That's how you fix that problem for an error 404 page. So you do also have to account for the fact, though, that we've got several different URLs because we've got a URL for our local environment, which is http 127-0-0-1 port 5500. So that's our local URL. We have our GitHub URL, which is https angelajholden.github.io/Colorado. That's our staging URL. Then we're going to have a production URL, which we haven't even done any deployment or server setup yet for the production URL, but that is going to be https coloradowebproject.com. So we have 3 URLs to specify for the base element for the 404.html page. So we're going to do, oh, I accidentally clicked there. We're going to do a little bit of JavaScript to check and see where we're at and load the base URL element based on what environment we're actually in. And that's really easy to do because let's go to our console. Okay. And let's just look at our window.location. We got all this information about where we're actually at. So all I really want to do is check and see what, I guess, the origin is. We could do the origin, or we could just do the host. And I'm just going to write a conditional script that says, hey, if the host is angelajholden.github.io, the base URL is angelajholden.github.io/Colorado. If the host is this one, we'll do host name 127 blah blah blah, set this is the base URL. So isn't this fun? I think it is. Okay, so let's do a little JavaScript. Okay, so we'll call this function base URL. And if you've done this before and you have a easier way to do it, or you think that there's a more efficient way to handle this, by all means, let me know. I've worked on a handful of full stack projects. Like I got hired. I remember once getting, the first time I ever used Angular, I was hired to work on a full stack Angular project, work on the UI. And every time I worked on it, I had to change the base URL in order to get it to work locally, and then remember to change it back. And I was like, the developer that I was working with was kind of prickly. Like it was, I don't know, I did like kind of tiptoe around this person a little bit. If it was anybody else, or even if it was now, because this was like 5 or 6 years ago, if it was anybody else, I would have been like, hey, can we just write a function to check and see where we're at and change the base URL based on that? I don't know. So I think this is an easy way to handle this, as long as you know what your URLs are, which we do. Yeah, and then you don't have to remember to change your base URL, because I promise you, you will deploy this. If you're relying on your own memory to change the base URL before you deploy, you will forget, and your 404 page won't work. So just a little tip from me to you. Okay, so we'll do const. What do we want to do? Let's just do origin. No, let's do host name, because that's the simplest. Host name equals window dot location dot host name. And then we'll say local equals, what does local equal? Well, actually our local would equal we don't, well, the path is the only thing. It doesn't really capture the Colorado part, does it, in the right way? So I'm just going to make it a string. Yeah, I'm just going to make it a string. Hang on. So we'll just call this staging equals https:/Colorado. And then our local will be this. Well, I don't even think we do. We need the port number. Our local is just going to be this. And then prod is going to be eventually this Colorado Web Project.com. I just bought that domain name for the deployment. Okay, So if local, so actually if host name equals local, then we want to create, I think we want to create the element, right? We want to create a base URL and append it as the last item in the head. Okay, I have to remind myself how to do that. MDN JavaScript create element. Okay, so give me an example of how to do this. Const new div, so we'll say const base document equals create element base. And we have this pulled up here so we know what it has to have. So it has to have a base with an href. I don't think we need a target, we just need an href. Okay, so let's do const base equals document create element. Is it just base or do I have to put it in? Yes, I have to put it in quotes. Base. And then we have to append it. So what do we want to do? MDN append child. Is there a better way to do that? Append, I think it's append child. The append child method interface adds a node to the end of the list of children of a specified parent node. Yeah, that's what we want. So, and then document head append child. Wait, why do I feel like there's another better way to do this? Append child or append element? Append element? I feel like append element is the better way to do this. What am I thinking of? We just did this. Hang on. Let me look at my GitHub. Here's me in my very shaky JavaScript. Here it is. I think we did it here. It's a little bigger. Insert adjacent element. Yeah, this is the better way to do it, I think. Insert adjacent element. Right here. Position element. So the element is the head, and we want it to be before the end. So I want it to be the last thing just inside the target element after its last child. Yeah, insert adjacent element. So position, a string representing the position relative to the target element. So let's look at an example here. Yeah, after end. And then here's the dialog. Okay. So we also need the const head equals document dot. Can we just do that? Head? I think so. If hostname is local, then we want head insert adjacent, wait, what's the grid? Insert the adjacent element, the dialog after the end. I think that's right. Head, insert adjacent element. And we said before the end, and the thing that we're inserting is the base. So if we got this right, this should work locally. So let's check and see. So we should see the base URL now. Oh, but we also have to make sure that we have to actually put that URL inside the base. So we'll see the element, but we won't see the href yet. Whew, this is stressful. You can do it, Angela. I don't see it yet. Oh, we didn't, hang on. I didn't know I was going to be doing this today exactly. Okay, might have gotten this wrong. Oh, and we need to make sure it's also only on, we only set the base URL on the 404 page. That's the other thing that we have to do. Well, first of all, can we console log this? Console log local. Oh, okay, so that's working. The host name, that's correct. Oh, but they're not equal. That's why. These have to be equal. Okay, Angela, you can do this. So it has to be the origin. Okay, so this has to actually be the origin. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because we have to set, in order for us to set the correct thing, it has to be equal to what exists. Okay, so the base element is now appearing. Now we have to make sure that, I think we can just say, can't we just say base dot href equals the origin. There it is. So now we have the correct base URL set for our local environment. So, but we don't really care about our local environment, do we? Because we know that it's not going to work locally. So should we bother setting it locally? We've come this far. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. We don't have a production site yet. Let's just concentrate on our development site. So our development URL, is the origin going to work? Yeah, the origin will work because we can just append Colorado. So as long as the window location origin matches what we specify here, we can just take Colorado off. We'll just take that off. So there's our staging. So then we would say else if origin equals staging. Oh, I did this wrong. Else if origin equals staging. I feel like there's a more efficient way to do this. Let's just get it working. But we need to make sure that, can we do base, I need to add something. I need to append something here. Let's do this. We'll do let base so the base href would be the origin Colorado. Whoops, Colorado. That works, right? Yeah, I think that works. And then else if the origin equals prod, which is this right here. So this would be the same because they're both the root URL. So we could say local or prod, right? So if it's the local environment or the production environment, then the base href equals the origin, and we would go ahead and put this in. But if it's the staging environment, then the base href equals the origin / Colorado, and then we go ahead and put it in. Well, actually, we don't need to do this twice. We would just say what it is, and then we would put this right there, right? What do we think? The real test is going to be the staging environment. I think this looks pretty good though. Let's console log window.location.origin, just so we can take a peek at that in the browser. I like it. What do we think? Yeah, so this one, the prod isn't going to work until we actually set up our deployment. But I think this is a good way to handle the base URL situation, because we have to set it for the 404 page. We have to tell it what the base URL is for the relative paths. And then that's going to cover every crazy situation of wrong URLs getting typed into the browser. Okay, let's go ahead and deploy this. Well, let's make sure that this is still working locally, and it is. There's our local working. Let's put a note in here though about 404 error likely does not work locally. test this on staging and production. Okay. I might write a more comprehensive note than that, but I think this is a good way to handle this. Okay, let's test it. Let's go ahead and deploy this and make sure it works. And then we can finish styling our 404 page. JS for base element 404 handling. Okay. I like it. What do we think? Clash of Clans Legend is here. Hello. I'm doing well. How are you doing? Malik approves. Honestly, I love the deployment server configuration part of these things because it's so important. It's so important. If you build for the browser, it turns out you have to understand how the browser actually works. And that means you kind of have to understand how servers work. And God knows there's enough different server configurations out there. You don't have to learn all of them, but I mean, just pick one and see if you can figure it out. I am an Apache type of gal. I'm an Apache lady. I like Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP. It is such a good generic server. It handles so many different situations. WordPress, static, little PHP, little database. And can we talk about, I like to shit on WordPress because I started my career as a WordPress developer, and I can be pretty hard on the direction that WordPress has gone in, which is not a reflection of WordPress developers. It's more of a reflection of Automatic and Matt Mullenweg. And let's face it, WordPress has a very real Matt Mullenweg problem, which I would love to make a video about my thoughts on that. That aside, WordPress developers are the most underrated full stack developers out there, in my opinion. Totally, they handle back end, front end, templating, UIs, database queries. They do everything, and they are so underrated, especially in this day and age of fancy JavaScript frameworks. WordPress developers are wildly underrated. Everything I know how to do on a server and how to account for these types of things or do these types of things all comes from being a WordPress developer and making sure that I understood how that CMS worked, that you could do error handling, that you could get things deployed correctly to a server. All of this knowledge comes from being a WordPress developer. It doesn't come from somebody who, I'm going to use the word just. I don't mean that, I think that sounds condescending, and I don't mean to be condescending, but if I was just building static HTML, CSS, vanilla JavaScript, vanilla CSS websites, I wouldn't know how to do all this stuff. So again, this is not me saying that if you just understand HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you'll be set for life. You obviously have to do more than that. My point is that if you build for the browser, understand how the browser works, and i.e. understand how servers work. That is my point. So, okay, I'm always prepared to be wrong, but let's see if this actually works. So here we are on our gibberish. I'll go back over here. Here we are on our gibberish URL on GitHub Pages. Let's see what happens. Okay. What happened here? Okay, this hasn't deployed yet. So let's give this a minute. We'll go back to our original repo. So JavaScript for base element 404 handling. So we know that this did get deployed up to our repo. Oh, we have a lot of errors here. But these are all 404, so it's not an error yet for our JavaScript. Did the deployment work? It says 3 minutes ago. Okay, let's check our network tab. So it's still not getting our it's not loading our JavaScript still. Okay, so it can't set the base URL if it can't load the JavaScript. Okay, that makes sense. It can't set the base URL if it can't load the JavaScript. Which means it has to load the JavaScript for those errors to go away. So how do we account for that? How do we deal with that? How do we make sure that this is always going to load? I mean, are we going to put this, God help me, are we going to put this on the page? Ugh. That means that if we change this to 404, 404.html, now it works because it can actually load this. It can't load it if the URLs don't work, and the URLs have to work in order for it to load. Wow, I did not think I was going to go down this path today. I'll tell you probably the easiest way to deal with this, because we only need this for the 404 page. The easiest way to deal with this is probably to just do this. Oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. That's what it's come to. This JavaScript has to live on this page, but we only need it for this page. Okay. That's what it came down to. I don't know how else it's going to load if it can't find the path. So let's go ahead and push this one more time. JS for base element needs to live on the 404.html page. Yep. It's not the end of the world. And it does make sense. But hopefully the people watching right now understand what's going on. Nobody's really asking any questions. But hopefully you understand what's going on, right? That we have to dynamically set that base URL in order for the 404 page to work correctly and maintain the relative paths. And a 404 page is something that we should be doing. I've never made a 404 page, apparently, for a static website, or I haven't done it for any of my projects on this channel. And clearly, we should be doing that. I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense. So let's give this a moment. We'll be able to see here when this disappears. Okay, so this is deployed. So now we should be able to, if we just do this, it worked. It worked. So here's our base URL. So now our base URL is being correctly set, and our relative paths are looking at this base element and they know where to find this information to load. We did it. That was kind of cool, actually. I enjoyed that. So let's play with this URL a little bit. So let's say it's blog portfolio, a URL that totally doesn't exist. Blog portfolio blah 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 / index.html. Oh, that doesn't work. Okay, so it's still, we have our base URL set. So what is it trying to find? So here's the script. Well, if our base URL is set, okay, let's ask ChatGPT. I'm going to take a picture of this. Where are you? Okay, take a picture of that. And let's take a picture here to show the base URL. It's almost working. It's almost working. I set the base element on the 404.html page, but the relative, maybe is it because I'm loading the script at the end after the body? Do we need to load the script before the body? It's almost working. I set the base element on the 404 HTML page, but the relative path is still wrong. I discovered I had to put I wrote some JavaScript to get the correct URL for the base and added it to the 404.html page just before the closing body tag. Here's my JS. I'm just going to take a picture of this. I do think this is interesting. You're extremely close. The issue isn't your, it's when the base element is applied. Right now, oh, the base element has to come before these things, I bet. The browser immediately resolves those URLs relative to the broken URL. So it tries this. Only after that does your script run and insert base. By then it's too late. The fix, the base element must exist before the browser parses the relative URLs. So it must appear in the head before your CSS and JavaScript I love this. Okay, hang on one moment, please. The bigger architectural note, you'll like this. You actually don't need JavaScript for this. Just do You actually don't need JavaScript for this. Just do. That works perfectly on GitHub Pages. Then on your real domain, you can remove it or set it static. Okay, but wait. If I don't use JS, then I have to remember to do it manually. The simple static approach, just hard code. This works perfectly. Then when you move to your real domain, yes, that means changing one line before deployment, but honestly, stop. No. Your instinct is good. Detect the origin and set the base dynamically. But there is still one problem. The browser resolves CSS and JS before this runs. The elegant developer solution. Okay. Oh, okay. So that's fair. I'll check that. Okay. All due respect, I didn't ask. I didn't ask for the elegant solution, and I think you are wrong. I don't want to remember, oh, for God's sakes, remember to change that value. The whole point of a smooth front end process is to move from staging to prod without changing static values. Thank you for pointing out my logic is wrong. I will fix that. You're right, I overstepped. And you're not wrong about the goal here. If your process is clean, you should be able to move from staging to prod without hand editing a static path. That is a perfectly reasonable standard. The real issue is just this. Okay, so all we have to do, yeah, is change this. So let's fix that. So we're going to say, if origin equals local, or origin equals prod, and then we're going to do base, what do we, What are our choices here? So we want after the beginning. That's what we want. After beginning, so it'll put it in first. After begin. Even though this doesn't work locally, I still want this set locally, and I still want to automate this process. So I will let you decide for yourself how you want to handle it, but this is what I'm going to do. Let's make sure that this works. There we are. So now our base is being set immediately. Let's ask, does it matter? I want to know, does it matter if the JavaScript runs at the bottom of the page before the closing body tag? Yes, it does matter. And in this case, it breaks what you're trying to do. The base element affects how the browser resolves all relative URLs that appear. Okay. So we do want to put it up here. All right. So this should immediately put it right in there. One more subtle thing, browsers start preloading assets very aggressively, sometimes even before the DOM is fully parsed. That makes early placement even more important. So the short answer is yes, if the script is at the bottom of the page, it's too late for the base to influence your asset paths. Well, for one page, I'm fine with this. So I'm going to start doing this on 404 pages, knowing what I know now about loading a 404 error page. And like I said, if you want to put in relative, or excuse me, absolute paths for your URLs, clearly there's nothing wrong with that. ChatGPT is encouraging us to do that. Well, really, ChatGPT is saying, just go ahead and set your base. ChatGPT is basically saying, go ahead and set your base as an absolute path. And just remember, based on where you're deploying, in my own experience, I feel like this is a better way to go. It automates the process. I don't love putting a script inside of a page, but for one page on a static website, I'm fine with this trade-off. So this is how I'm going to handle it, and I'm good with it. So I will let you decide for yourself what you want to do. We're all just here to learn and explore, aren't we? Okay, so we're going to push this one more time. Git add, git commit. Putting script at the top of the head and fixing condition. Git origin. Okay. We're doing pretty good on time. We're about an hour and a half in, so I think we still have time to style this page. And Carrie says, that he is from India. He, she is from India. ABC123 is here today. You're not late, my friend. You're right on time. You are right on time. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. Don't you worry about it. We're happy to have you whenever you can come. Are we having fun yet? What do we think? I'm having fun. I gave you this whole big thing about being nice chat GPT, but sometimes it does give me advice that I didn't ask for. And we'd already even talked about this. There is a reason why I didn't want to do static. I had this experience. I thought it was a pain in the ass. It made no sense to me. And here it is telling me to do static. No, stop. Stop. Okay, so there we are. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Now the real test. Okay, and it still didn't work. Our assets still aren't loading. Okay. So we're setting our base URL. But it's still not working. So it's trying to get the script twice. Why is it doing that? It's trying to get the script Okay. We're gonna ask for help. It's trying to load it twice, which I think is pretty interesting. Oh, wrong one. Now, what do we think is happening? I bet I'm gonna have to put it in, aren't I? I'm gonna have to put it in absolute. That's gonna be the result of all of this, isn't it? That I have to put it in as an absolute path. Okay, so we need a trailing slash. We need a trailing slash. If that's all we need. I think the problem now is the missing trailing slash on your base href. Right now the DevTools shows this. That looks close, but it changes how relative URLs are resolved because it gets resolved to this, and the browser treats Colorado like a file path segment, not a directory. Oh, that is actually interesting. I hadn't thought of it like that. Okay. So your staging line should be with a slash, and for local prod, base href origin with a slash. Stop. What are you doing? Your current code is missing that final slash in both places. Also, the duplicate bad requests are probably the browser making some early or speculative requests before everything settles, but the big blocking issue is still the wrong URL base format. The root level requests to script.js and normalize are the giveaway. Okay, that's the first thing I change. Okay, so let's try it again. And we can also check, we'll check locally. We'll check, even though we know that it doesn't really load, we'll check locally just to see if the paths are resolving correctly. Fixing paths. So we'll let that deploy. So we know that this isn't going to go to the correct page, but I at least want to see the path be correct. Oh, it's not really loading it at all. Well, let's at least check here. Oh, no, it can't even load that, can it? All right, so much for testing locally. So we can at least see that this is loading correctly. And we can see that this has the slash that it needs. I mean, that is a really good point to make sure that you always have a slash after something that you know is a directory. Yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't quite thought of it like that. I don't think I'd ever had it that explicitly explained to me before, quite like that. So that makes sense. Because I do sometimes think, oh, I'll leave that slash off, it doesn't matter. But the slash if it's a directory, the slash should be there because that has meaning. It says something about what that actually is, right? Okay, let's check this again. Here's where I'm at with this. If it doesn't work, I'm probably just gonna go static because this is officially taking too long. So, oh, and I think it might have actually worked. Okay. It's still trying to find this though, which is interesting. So it's loading it twice. It's loading everything twice, which is not ideal. So is it trying once and failing and then trying again after everything loads? I think it's trying everything once and failing. Oh, wrong one. And then it's reloading again. Is it trying everything once, then failing, then trying again, and it works? Yes, that's basically what it looks like. What you're seeing is most likely the browser starts parsing the document at the bad URL. Some relative assets get resolved against the bad path. Those requests are 404. Your injected base is applied early enough that the page can still recover. Browser then resolves later asset requests correctly so the page renders. That's why the page now looks styled, but the console still shows failed requests. Yeah. So the answer is not exactly fail, then retry the exact same request. It's more like initial parse creates bad requests. Then after base is in place, later resolution happens correctly. Enough of the right assets load for the page to display. The fact that the page is styled tells us that the correct CSS did eventually load somewhere in the process. The big thing I'd point out now is this. Your base is still being created by JavaScript, which means you are racing the parser. Even in the head, the browser may already begin processing nearby resource tags in ways that give you these extra failed requests. So your current setup is partially recovering, not cleanly preventing the bad requests. If your goal is no manual environment edits and no bad first requests, then the strongest version is to write the base directly into the document stream, not add it afterward as the DOM node. That means something like this in the head before any assets. I normally would not reach for document write, but this is one of those rare cases where it actually makes sense because you need the base to exist during parsing, not after insertion. So yes, your read is basically right. It's rendering after some early failures. That means you've improved it, but you haven't completely eliminated the race yet. Okay, so here's what this is telling me. This is actually telling me that I think it just needs to be static. I think we shouldn't be using JavaScript for this because this is one page. It is important. I think it's an important part of a website. I think we should be doing this on all of our builds. But I think this much work to do this one thing probably isn't worth it. So we're just going to put in a base URL and honestly, once we get to production, we'll set the base URL now, Colorado, because this is our GitHub staging, right? This is our GitHub Pages staging site. Part of our QA needs to be that when we deploy this, do we need to test the 404 page on staging after we do all of our testing and deploy to production? Probably not. So it needs to be part of our QA process to change this URL to a root for our coloradowebproject.com, which is just a slash for the root to set the base URL so this works. Okay, so now I have to apologize to ChatGPT. Okay, I'm sorry. I got mad at you about the more elegant solution. This all tells me the best way to deal with it is just set the base element and remember to change it when I deploy to prod. Okay, one moment, please. Well, I have no regrets. Let me tell you, I didn't plan to do this today. I did not think this was going to take this long or that we were going to go down this road. But what a perfect example of how you use ChatGPT to solve a problem and to figure something out and honestly just learn something new. This has been very educational for me, and it helps me really sit and realize that I haven't ever built I've never built a 404 page for a truly static website. The most static website I've ever built a 404 page for is my personal website, which yes, it's static, there's no back end, but I use PHP for templating, and I used PHP specifically to set the base URL, which means that there's something happening there that clearly I wasn't aware of that sets that base URL correctly before the page renders. And I had no idea that that was even going on until I went down this road today with this. So we learned something new today. And I do think it's cool that we figured this out. And we know now what to do moving forward. Yeah, we do. We know what to do now moving forward. Did I deploy this? No, we got to deploy this because we need to see it working before we quit for the day. So, whoops. Changing the base URL and removing the script. Git push origin main. Okay. So we'll give this a moment to deploy. So our 404 page is sort of done. We need to actually style our 404 page. So clearly we're not going to get to that until tomorrow. So, and what are you working on today? Well, we're working on a 404 page for a static website. And it's been quite a day learning about the base element, how pages render. Yeah, it's been an education, hasn't it? So that means that our 404 page locally doesn't work, obviously. So don't even try to test this. GitHub Pages staging site. We could probably put another note in here. It won't work locally. This page won't work locally. That means that we should make sure then that I put this in the README, right? So if we're going to start building 404 pages for people as part of our builds, this needs to be included in the documentation to deal with this, right? Yeah. So this is correct now. This is what you would expect. This page is not found. Everything else loads, but that's the whole point, that it's a 404 page. So we'll go to network, we'll clear this. Let's get all index.html right here, 404 not found. That's the whole point of this, is that this page does not exist. So this is this is the experience that you want to have, that this page does not exist, it would not be found. So let's just take off the last part of this. There we go, 404 not found, same here. clear this. 404, page not found, but it loads our 404.html. So that's exactly what we want to have happen. So the page itself is not found, but our resources are found. Our script is still found because our script knows what the path is because we set the path using the base element. That was the whole point of this. Honestly, I should put this on my list of tutorials. Now that I understand this a lot better, this would be an awesome tutorial. Building 404 pages for a static HTML website. This would be really good. So I hope that you all enjoyed this as much as I did, because I thought this was a blast. The only bummer is that it really doesn't work locally, but I don't think it matters if it doesn't work locally, right? So if we just did this, now it works locally. It's because that GitHub Pages has see, it just doesn't work locally. So maybe it doesn't, I don't think it matters. Just make sure it works on staging. And then the thing is just make sure that this works on production. So yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah. Okay, so tomorrow we will style our 404 page. Because if somebody types in the wrong URL, or usually a 404 page is just that maybe you had a page and then you decided that you didn't want to have that page anymore. I'm getting ready to do that right now with my own personal website. So when I built my website a year ago, I built this articles section and I wrote 4 blogs, and I'm not really a blogger. I'm not planning to do any more writing. So I'm going to take this section out, but technically I have these URLs that exist, and until they are de-indexed in Google, which I will de-index them, but that can take time, I need to have a 404 solution. Let's see if mine even works. I think it will. Yeah. So here's my 404 page, error 404. So this is working. And I used PHP for mine. Should I pull this up? Let me pull my site up and I'll show you what I did. Because I didn't use JavaScript. Let's see here. Yeah, I have a directory 404. I have a directory 404. Everything is a PHP. And I have... or did I? Oh, wait, where's my... Hang on, here's my includes. Here's my head.php. Right here. Oh, that's the robots. There's the title. Where's my base? Oh, it probably, we don't need to set a base because I set a base URL to get the correct path. So I didn't need to use a base element. I don't remember doing any of this. I did this a year ago. Echo base URL. Where is that coming from? I know I didn't do this. I don't know enough PHP to do this, so I know I got this from ChatGPT. Where is this coming from? Oh, a config. That's why. So there's a config.php that sets the base URL. So determine the base URL dynamically. And I use MAMP, so the URL is localhost with portfolio appended. And it even says here local development MAMP or a base URL. Otherwise, basically everything else just a slash for production. And I think I have this on Heroku. It's not a GitHub page because it uses PHP, and GitHub pages are really just for static deployment, right? I don't think you can deploy like a PHP app, which is what Heroku treats this as, to a GitHub page. So I use Heroku for my staging environment, and then my production environment is obviously just a slash for a root URL. Same with Heroku. Yeah, so I didn't need to set a base URL for the 404 page because I was getting the URL and setting in the head the correct path. So I didn't need a base URL. Yeah, does that make sense? Anyways, okay. Well, there we are. Wow, good crowd today. Thanks to everybody who came and watched me do all this. Appreciate you. Do me a favor, if you're new here, go ahead and like the video. Subscribe if you're not already. Helps the channel grow, helps the algorithm, helps get this out to more people who might be interested in this type of content. Subscribe if you're not already. I'm here at a minimum 4 days a week, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. Generally just hang out here for about 2 to 2.5 hours ballpark, and we just do stuff like this. I just build static projects, solve problems, get myself into sticky situations, look for ways out of it. We use ChatGPT a lot. I don't really use ChatGPT to write code for me. I really treat it like a problem-solving tool, help me understand why this does or doesn't work. That's what I use ChatGPT for. Yeah, sometimes I get code snippets from it, but I like to try to solve problems myself and understand what's actually happening. That's how I treat AI. Yeah, so if that's interesting to you, come hang out with us. This is day 5 of a 6-day sprint, so I'll be here tomorrow, taking Friday off, and then on Saturday we start another 6-day sprint, and we're going to continue to work on the project that you saw today, this Colorado project. Come back in April. In April, I'm doing 30 days of vanilla JavaScript, because clearly my vanilla JavaScript needs a little bit of work. So we're going to do a JavaScript prompt and build a UI and solve a problem every single day and deploy it in April for 30 days. So even Easter, I'm here every single day. We're going to do it because I keep saying I need to get better at JavaScript, and I'm not really getting better. Although today was fun. I know that was a simple little thing that I did today, but to me, that's super fun. And I did it a lot faster than I normally would have been able to do it. So it is getting better. It is. If you want to come hang out with me on Instagram, my handle is Angela J. Holden. Over on Instagram, I don't do a ton of posting over there. I'm a Reels doom scroller. I do occasionally make Reels. And if you have questions about anything related to front-end development, go ahead and send me a DM. I've gotten I talked about this at the beginning of the stream today. I've gotten some really good questions from new developers, new people starting out. And I'm going to distill some of that, I think, and talk about that a little bit tomorrow. I want to answer some of those questions because what I see happening to new developers, it's not what I expect. It's people who are sort of, paralyzed by how to even start or where to even begin. And I kind of blame our roadmap dev culture for doing that to new people. I I think it's a terrible idea to throw a roadmap at a front end developer and show them 253,000 things that they should know how to do in order to be a front end developer. I look at those roadmaps, and I've been doing this now almost 13 years. I don't know how to do most of those things that are on those roadmaps. It's absolutely absurd that we're telling brand new people entering this profession that they have to know how to do every single thing on some arbitrary roadmap. That's not real life. That's not how this works. Junior developers especially aren't going to know how to do all those things, or they wouldn't be junior developers. Part of working in this business and having a job is that you learn how to do things. You get assigned new projects. You learn new things. That's how this works. Not that you know how to do everything going into it. I had somebody a year ago ask me a question. I haven't heard from her in a while. Bailey, I think her name was, or was it Lena? It might have been Lena. I think she had interviewed for a job as a dev, and they told her she wasn't qualified for the job because she didn't understand course policies. Bullshit. You don't need to know that to be a junior developer. Those are things that you learn on the job through experience, through projects, through the type of thing that we just sat here doing. You don't need to. Not understanding a course policy means you're not qualified to be a junior developer. That was just an excuse to not hire her, but that's what they told her. And she was upset by that. She was clearly upset by that. So let's just try to deconstruct a few of these things. Let's just peel back some of the layers. Let's calm down. And let's just approach this calmly. And let's try to give you some easy wins. Let's try to answer some of those questions tomorrow. So I'm going to have some of those questions ready to go for tomorrow and just tell you what I think, what I'm thinking. So yeah, anyways. Thank you. Thank you, Malik. I appreciate it. And this person says, AI left the chat. I'm not sure what that means. Tell me what that means. Sometimes I need things explained to me. AI left the chat. Okay. Maybe it's a compliment. Maybe it's snark. I literally have no idea. Okay. Everybody, have a great rest of your day wherever you are. I love all of you fine people. Come back tomorrow and hang out with me, and we'll keep talking about front-end development, okay?